The cargo hauler touched down on Haven's gate with barely a shudder. Danny Reed stretched his back and heard it pop in 3 places. 12 hours in that cramped cockpit had not been kind to his spine. He grabbed his worn jacket from the seat and felt the familiar weight shift in the inner pocket. "Easy there, Brutus," Danny muttered. A small black and white head poked out, beady eyes blinking in the cabin light. The honey badger yawned, showing teeth that had no business being that sharp, then tucked himself back into the warmth of the jacket. Danny made his way through the docking tube. Haven's gate sprawled before him through the viewport, a massive wheel of metal and lights spinning slowly in the black. Thousands of species came here to trade, argue, and occasionally try to cheat each other. Danny had been running cargo to this station for 3 years now. He knew the rules. The security checkpoint appeared ahead. A tall insectoid creature with too many legs stood behind a scanner array. Its compound eyes tracked Danny as he approached. Species identification, the guard clicked. Human. Danny Reed. Freelance cargo transport. Danny held out his wrist for the scanner. The guard's antennae twitched. Deathworlder classification confirmed. All weapons must be surrendered per station regulation 774. Danny sighed and pulled his sidearm from his hip holster. The small plasma pistol looked almost toy-like in his hand. He placed it on the counter along with his scanner and the short blade he kept in his boot. "That everything?" the guard asked. "That's everything," Danny lied smoothly. Brutus shifted in his jacket but stayed quiet. The guard ran another scan, then stamped Danny's credentials. "Berth 42, lower ring. Your cargo bay is assigned to Section 12. Do not deviate from approved pathways." Danny took his papers and walked through. Behind him, he heard the guard muttering into a comm unit about Deathworlders and additional security protocols. He smiled. Let them worry. He was just here to deliver fertilizer compounds to the agricultural district and collect payment. Simple job. The main concourse opened up before him. Dozens of species moved through the space. Tall Pelions with their 4 arms juggling datapads. Short Quillen traders with their distinctive blue fur. A group of Grell mercenaries, their reptilian scales catching the light as they laughed at something. Danny kept his head down and moved toward the lower levels. That was when he noticed them. 3 Soltarian merchants standing near a viewport, their insectoid bodies almost identical to the security guard species. But these 3 wore expensive robes and had the calculating look of people who saw opportunity everywhere. One of them pointed at Danny. The others nodded. Danny's hand instinctively went to where his pistol usually sat. Empty holster, right? He picked up his pace. The lower cargo levels were quieter. Fewer travelers, more workers. Danny's boots echoed on the metal grating as he made his way to Section 12. His cargo containers sat where they should be, sealed and intact. He ran a quick visual inspection, checking the seals and control panels. Brutus poked his head out again, sniffing the air. "Yeah, I smell it too," Danny said quietly. Someone was watching them. He could feel eyes on his back. He turned slowly. The corridor appeared empty, but shadows moved in the spaces between containers. Danny had spent enough time in rough ports to recognize the setup. Someone was planning something stupid. He pulled out his datapad and sent a quick message to his client confirming delivery. Payment pinged back immediately. Good. At least he would get paid before whatever was coming actually arrived. Brutus growled, a low sound that rumbled through Danny's chest. "Not yet, buddy," Danny whispered. "Let's see what they want first." He made his way back toward his assigned berth, taking a slightly different route. The feeling of being followed intensified. Danny counted at least 4 different sets of footsteps, trying to stay quiet behind him. Not security. Security would have just stopped him directly. His berth was a small cube of space with a cot, a tiny bathroom, and a storage locker. Basic but clean. Danny sat on the cot and finally let Brutus out completely. The honey badger stretched, his stocky body extending to nearly 3 feet of muscle and claws. He immediately began investigating every corner of the room. "We've got problems," Danny said, pulling out a protein bar and breaking it in half. Brutus snatched his portion and demolished it in seconds. Those Soltarians from the concourse. They had friends. Big friend from the sound of those footsteps. Brutus looked up at him and made a chattering sound. I know you're not worried. That's why one of us has survived this long with all their original body parts. Danny ate his half of the bar slower. Station rules say no violence in common areas. They'll have to wait until we're somewhere isolated. The honey badger went back to exploring, completely unconcerned about potential ambushes or mercenaries. Danny watched him knock over the trash bin and investigate its contents with scientific precision. Tomorrow we check the cargo one more time, then we leave, Danny said. Easy job, remember? Brutus found something interesting under the cot and dragged it out. An old wrapper from the previous occupant. He shredded it with enthusiasm. Danny lay back on the cot, hands behind his head. The station hummed around them, thousands of lives intersecting in metal corridors. Somewhere out there, people were planning to rob him or worse. They thought he was helpless without his weapons. He looked at Brutus, who had fallen asleep on top of the shredded wrapper, looking almost peaceful. They have no idea, Danny said to the empty room. Danny woke to Brutus sitting on his chest, staring directly into his face. The honey badger's breath smelled like the jerky Danny had given him before bed. Personal space, Brutus. The badger didn't move. His dark eyes held that particular look that meant he wanted something. Fine. Breakfast first, then cargo check. Danny sat up, dumping Brutus onto the mattress. The creature made an offended noise, but immediately started grooming himself. Danny splashed water on his face and changed into a clean shirt. His jacket went back on, and Brutus climbed into the inner pocket without being asked. They had done this routine 1,000 times across a dozen stations. The corridor outside was busier than last night. Workers moved equipment, traders argued in clicking languages, and somewhere distant machinery clanged. Danny headed for the cargo section, stopping at a food dispenser for coffee that tasted like motor oil and a nutrient pack that tasted worse. Section 12 was exactly as he had left it. The containers sat sealed and quiet. Danny ran his scanner over each one, verifying the contents matched his manifest. Agricultural compounds, organic fertilizers, some bacterial cultures for soil enhancement. Boring stuff, valuable to farmers, worthless to thieves, which made the ambush even more stupid. Danny sensed them before he saw them. The cargo bay was too quiet. The usual background noise of the station had changed. He set down his coffee and casually moved behind one of his containers. 0.6 figures emerged from between the cargo stacks. Grell mercenaries, just as Danny had suspected. They were big, easily 7 feet tall, with scales that ranged from dark green to muddy brown. Heavy muscles moved onto those scales. Each one carried shock batons, illegal on the station but easy enough to smuggle if you knew the right people. The lead Grell had a scar running down his snout. He smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing meat. Human, you're going to give us the access codes to your cargo containers. Danny held up his hands. Those containers have fertilizer. You really want to steal dirt. We know what you're carrying, the Grell growled. The Soltarians paid good money for information. Those bacterial cultures are worth 10,000 credits on the black market. 5,000, maybe, Danny corrected. And that's if you can keep them alive during transport. They need specific temperatures. The Grell stepped closer. The others fanned out, cutting off escape routes. Professional work. They had done this before. Codes. Now, Danny sighed. He really had hoped to avoid this. Look, this is a bad idea. Really bad. You should just walk away. The Grell laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. You're unarmed. You're alone. You're in a restricted section where no one can hear you scream. What exactly makes this a bad idea for us? I'm not alone, Danny said quietly, and I was never the one you needed to worry about. The lead Grell raised his shock baton. Last chance, human. Danny reached into his jacket. The Grells tensed, expecting a hidden weapon. Instead, Danny pulled out Brutus. The honey badger dangled from Danny's hands, looking sleepy and confused. He was maybe 2 feet long, stocky, with distinctive black and white markings. His small ears twitched. The Grell stared. Then they started laughing. That's your protection. The leader could barely speak through his amusement. A pet? Some kind of earth rodent. Not a rodent, Danny said. And definitely not a pet. Brutus is family. He set the honey badger on the ground. Brutus looked around, noticed the grells, and his entire demeanor changed. The sleepy confusion vanished. His body went rigid. A low growl started deep in his throat. "What's it gonna do, bite our ankles?" Another growl asked. The leader reached for Danny. Brutus launched himself through the air like a furry missile. He hit the lead grell square in the face. Claws found eye ridges. Teeth sank into the soft scales of the throat. The grell's laugh turned into a scream. He stumbled backward, trying to grab the creature attached to his head. Brutus was already moving. He dropped from the first grell and went straight for the second. This one tried to kick him. Brutus dodged, twisted, and clamped onto the grell's leg. His teeth punched through scales like they were paper. "Get it off! Get it off!" The second grell shook his leg frantically. Brutus held on, growling like a miniature chainsaw. The third grell swung his shock baton. It connected with Brutus's side. Electricity crackled. The honey badger made a grunt of pain, released his target, and hit the ground. Danny winced. "Oh, you shouldn't have done that." Brutus shook himself. Then he looked at the grell who had shocked him. If honey badgers could smile, Brutus would be grinning that he charged. The third grell tried to run. Brutus was faster. He caught the mercenary's tail and climbed up his back like a ladder, claws digging into scales. The grell spun in circles, trying to dislodge him. The remaining three grells looked at their companions. One was clutching his bleeding face. Another was checking his mangled leg. The third was running in circles with a honey badger riding his back. "It's just one small creature," the fourth grell said, though he sounded uncertain. "We're trained fighters." Brutus had reached the spinning grell's head. He grabbed both ear holes and started pulling. The grell's scream echoed through the cargo bay. Station alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed. An automated voice announced the detection of unauthorized weapons discharge. The last three grells looked at each other. Professional pride warred with self-preservation. Self-preservation won. They ran. Brutus dropped from his current victim and immediately gave chase, moving faster than something his size had any right to move. "Brutus! Hail!" Danny shouted, running after them. "They're done. Let them go." The honey badger either didn't hear or didn't care. He was in full hunt mode now, and nothing short of direct intervention was going to stop him. Danny chased them down the corridor, listening to screams and the sound of scales scraping on metal. This was going to be so much paperwork. Danny rounded the corner just in time to see two grell mercenaries scramble on top of a cargo container. They pulled themselves up with desperate strength, scales scraping on metal. Below them, Brutus paced back and forth, making sounds that would haunt those mercenaries in their sleep. The honey badger spotted Danny and chittered something that sounded accusatory. "Don't give me that look. You're the one who went after their ears." Security arrived in force. 8 guards in full armor, weapons drawn, surrounding the scene. The one in front was Pelion, her 4 arms holding a scanner, a weapon, and 2 restraint devices simultaneously. Her rank insignia marked her as chief. She looked at the 3 unconscious grells bleeding on the cargo bay floor. She looked at the 2 grells on top of the container, one missing an ear and most of his dignity. She looked at Brutus, who was now sitting calmly at Danny's feet, grooming blood from his claws. "Explain," she said. Danny raised his hands. "They ambushed me, demanded my cargo codes, had illegal shock batons. Your sensors should have picked up the discharge." One of the guards checked a datapad and nodded confirmation to the chief. "The creature?" she asked. "His name is Brutus. He's my companion, registered as such with Earth's Wildlife Transport Authority and cleared through every customs checkpoint I've been through." The chief's eye stalks focused on Brutus. "That animal just took down 5 trained mercenaries." "6, Danny corrected, pointing to the grell with the mangled leg who was trying to crawl away. "And technically, I warned them this was a bad idea." The chief made a gesture. 2 guards moved to secure the injured mercenaries. Another guard approached the cargo container with a ladder, trying to coax the 2 survivors down. They refused to move while Brutus was visible. "That thing is classified as a pet on your documentation," the chief said. "Companion," Danny corrected. "There's a difference. Pets are domesticated. Brutus is wildlife. We just have an understanding. Brutus chose that moment to find something interesting on the floor and began digging at it with single-minded intensity. He looked about as threatening as a stuffed toy. That creature took a direct shock baton hit and kept fighting, the chief said. Danny shrugged. Honey badgers have extremely thick skin and loose connective tissue. Makes them resistant to bites, stings, and apparently electric shocks. Plus, their pain tolerance is off the charts. Why would your species keep such a creature? I didn't keep him. I found him when he was a kid. Poachers had killed his mother for her sink lands. He was maybe 3 weeks old. Wouldn't have survived on his own. Danny reached down and scratched behind Brutus's ears. The honey badger leaned into the touch, making a purring sound. Raised him myself. He imprinted on me. We've been together ever since. The chief pulled up something on her datapad. Her eye stalks went rigid as she read. Earth classification for this species includes the terms fearless, aggressive, and has no natural predators due to defensive capabilities. That's all true, Danny agreed. It also says they've been observed fighting lions, hyenas, and venomous snakes. Also true. Brutus once killed a cobra that got into our ship's cargo hold. Ate it for dinner. The chief looked at Danny like he was insane. You share living quarters with this creature? He snores, but yeah. Medical teams were loading the injured grells onto stretchers. The one with the missing ear was crying. The other two on the container still refused to come down. I'm reviewing the security footage now, one of the guards reported. The grells initiated contact. The human warned them multiple times. The creature only attacked after they threatened physical violence. The chief's communication device chirped. She listened for a moment, her expression darkening. We've arrested 3 Soltarian merchants attempting to leave the station. They're confessing to hiring the grells to steal your cargo. Sound about right, Danny said. They were watching me yesterday. You didn't report suspicious activity. On Haven's Gate, I'd be filing reports every 10 minutes. The chief almost smiled. Almost. You violated no station regulations. The creature is registered. You surrendered all required weapons. The grells possessed illegal arms and initiated assault. She paused. However, I'm updating your companion's classification in our system. To what? Defensive companion, extreme threat level. Same category we use for Xyrillian war beasts and Kelthran hunting raptors. Danny looked down at Brutus, who had found a piece of wrapper and was shredding it with enthusiasm. He's really not that dangerous if you don't threaten him, or me, or food, or his favorite sleeping spot. That's a long list of triggers, the chief observed. We all have our quirks. The medical team finally convinced the 2 grells to come down from the container by promising Brutus would be secured. Danny picked up the honey badger, who immediately tried to climb back down to continue his rampage. Easy, buddy. It's over. Brutus made disgruntled sounds but settled into Danny's arms. The chief watched this interaction with fascination. Your species forms bonds with death world predators. Honey badgers aren't actually predators. They're omnivores. Brutus likes berries and eggs as much as meat. It has fangs designed for tearing flesh. So do humans. We're omnivores too. Danny grinned. Earth doesn't really do specialized. Everything there has to be ready for everything else. The chief was quiet for a moment. I've read reports about humans. Your planet's classification as a death world. Your species' unusual resilience. But I thought the reports exaggerated. They probably undersold it, Danny said. Earth made us tough because it had to. Made everything tough. We just figured out we'd survive better together than apart. By befriending creatures that fight lions. Brutus has never actually fought a lion. That I know of. We don't visit Earth much anymore. The chief made a note on her datapad. Your cargo is cleared for departure. I'm assigning an escort to your berth to ensure no further incidents. Appreciate it. And Mr. Reed? Next time you visit Haven's Gate, please inform security that you're traveling with a registered defensive companion. It will prevent misunderstandings. Danny looked at the unconscious grells being carried away. Yeah, I can see how that might help. Brutus yawned, showing all his teeth, then tucked his head against Danny's chest and closed his eyes. News traveled fast on Haven's Gate. By the time Danny made it back to his berth, Half the station seemed to know about the incident. Traders stopped talking when he walked past. A group of Quillen merchants actually crossed to the other side of the corridor. Brutus rode in his usual spot inside Danny's jacket, completely oblivious to his newfound reputation as a station-level threat. Danny's datapad pinged with messages. 3 job offers, 2 requests for interviews, and 1 message from someone asking if Brutus was for sale. Danny deleted that last one immediately. The berth was as he left it, except for the security guard station outside. A young Pelian, probably fresh from training based on how nervous he looked. "Mr. Reed," the guard said, all 4 hands gripping his rifle a bit too tightly. "I'm here to ensure your safety." "Appreciate it." Danny paused. "You can relax. Brutus only attacks people who try to hurt us." The guard's eye stalks focused on the lump in Danny's jacket. "That's the creature. Want to meet him?" The guard took a step back. "I'm fine here, sir." Danny went inside and let Brutus out. The honey badger immediately claimed the bed, circling 3 times before flopping down with a satisfied grunt. Within seconds, he was snoring. Danny's datapad pinged again. This time, it was a priority message from a security chief. He opened it. "Mr. Reed, please report to Security Administration at your earliest convenience. This is not an arrest request. We simply have questions about Earth fauna." Danny raised an eyebrow. Questions about Earth fauna from station security was a new one. He grabbed his jacket and headed out, leaving Brutus to his nap. Security Administration was on the upper ring, in a section of the station that Danny rarely visited. The corridors here were cleaner, the lighting better maintained. Guards stood at regular intervals, all of them watching Danny with a mix of curiosity and caution. The chief's office was spacious, with viewports showing the stars beyond. She stood at her desk, all 4 arms working different datapads simultaneously. When Danny entered, she gestured to a chair. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming. You said you had questions." She set down 3 of the datapads and picked up a 4th. "I've been reviewing Earth's fauna database since our encounter. The results are disturbing." "Disturbing how?" "Your planet has an unusually high concentration of aggressive species. According to this data, there are over 1,500 documented species that regularly attack creatures larger than themselves. Another 3,000 species that are venomous or poisonous. And approximately 800 species that humans have successfully domesticated or formed working relationships with." Danny nodded. "Sound about right. How is your species still alive?" The question was so genuine that Danny almost laughed. "Because we learned to work with them instead of against them. Dogs help us hunt and guard our homes. Cats control rodent populations. Horses carry us and pull our equipment. Birds help us navigate and warn us of danger." He paused. "And sometimes a honey badger becomes family because there was no one else to care for him." The chief pulled up an image on her main screen. It showed a massive 4-legged creature with horns. "This is listed as domesticated livestock. It weighs over a ton and has killed multiple humans in recorded incidents." "That's a bull." "Yeah, they can be dangerous. But cows provide milk, meat, and labor. We learned to manage the risk." Another image appeared. A sleek predator with fangs. "This is a companion animal. Dog. Specifically looks like a wolf-dog hybrid. People keep them as pets, guards, and friends. It says here that the ancestor species hunted in packs and regularly killed prey 5 times their size. We hunted together. Then we became friends. Now we can't imagine life without them." Danny leaned forward. "Chief, what's this really about?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up footage from the cargo bay incident. Danny watched Brutus tear through the Grell mercenaries with ruthless efficiency. "This creature is registered as a companion. Not a weapon. Not a security animal. A companion." The chief paused. "How many other humans travel with animals like this?" "Most don't travel with honey badgers. Brutus is special. But yeah, lots of humans have animal companions. Dogs are the most common. Cats too. Some people have birds, reptiles, even insects. Combat capable insect. I mean, probably not for combat. But there are people who keep tarantulas, scorpions, that kind of thing." The chief's eye stalks went rigid. "Your species keeps venomous arthropods as companions?" "Some do. I had a friend who had a rose-hair tarantula named Princess. Sweetest creature you'd ever meet. Never bit anyone. It was venomous. Mildly, like a bee's sting. The chief made a sound that might have been distress. She pulled up more files, scrolling through entries. Bears. Large predators with claws capable of disemboweling prey. Recorded cases of humans keeping them as companions. Usually rescued cubs or injured adults. Not common, but it happens. Primates. Highly intelligent, capable of tool use and organized violence. Multiple cases of human households. Yeah, though that's less common now. They need a lot of space and social interaction. The chief kept scrolling. Her eye stalks quivered as she read. Horses, snakes, lizards, large birds of prey, aquatic predators. Mr. Reed, according to this database, humans have formed companion bonds with nearly every major predator classification on your planet. Danny shrugged. We're social creatures. We like company. Earth made everything dangerous, so we learned to make friends instead of enemies. This is insane. From a certain perspective, maybe, but it works for us. The chief sat down, which was impressive given that Pelians usually stood. I need to update our security protocols. If more humans visit this station with companions, we need to know what we're dealing with. That's probably smart. The Grell mercenaries are being treated for multiple lacerations, one severed ear, severe psychological trauma, and what the medical staff is calling prey response syndrome. They're terrified of small, furry creatures now. Brutus has that effect on people. Is he the most dangerous companion animal humans keep? Danny thought about it. No, I'd say dogs can be more dangerous if they're trained for combat. And horses can kill you with one kick. Brutus is just unusually fearless. Fearless. The chief pulled up a specific entry. The database says honey badgers have been observed fighting multiple predators simultaneously, raiding beehives despite thousands of stings, and have one of the highest pain tolerances recorded in mammalian species. That's Brutus. And you sleep in the same room as this creature. He's a good cuddler once you get past the claws. The chief stared at Danny for a long moment. Then she made a notation on her datapad. I'm issuing new guidelines. Any human arriving with animal companions must register them immediately. We'll assess threat levels individually. Fair enough. And Mr. Reed, you're cleared to depart whenever you're ready. But please, for everyone's safety, keep that creature secured until you're off station. Danny stood. He's probably still napping. Brutus sleeps about 16 hours a day. 16 hours? What does he do the other 8? Eats, plays, and occasionally terrifies mercenaries. The chief's communicator chirped. She listened, and her expression shifted to something between horror and fascination. We just got a report. A Vorton crime boss who was operating in the lower levels has suddenly packed up and left the station. No explanation. Okay. His last communication mentioned something about not wanting to risk encountering any more Deathworlder companions. Danny smiled. Word travels fast. Too fast. We're getting inquiries from trade vessels asking if they need special clearance to dock here now that a Deathworlder predator is on station. Brutus will be gone in a few hours. The damage to his reputation is already done. Danny headed for the door. Chief, if it helps, Brutus is actually a pretty chill guy when nobody's trying to rob us. That doesn't help at all, Mr. Reed. The bar on Haven's Gate was called the Void's Edge, and it served drinks from 40 different worlds. Danny sat in a corner booth with Brutus curled up on the seat beside him, working through a bowl of mixed nuts that the bartender had nervously provided. Danny nursed a beer that tasted vaguely like apples and watched the crowd. Everyone was watching him back. Word had definitely spread that a young Quillen approached the table, blue fur bristling with nervousness. She couldn't have been more than 20 in human years, clutching a datapad like a shield. Excuse me, Mr. Reed. That's me. I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Petra. I'm a trader, just started my routes 6 months ago. She glanced at Brutus, who was now gnawing on a particularly stubborn walnut. Is it true? About your companion. Depends what you heard. That he fought 6 Grell mercenaries and won. That he took a shock baton hit and kept fighting. That the Grells are still hospitalized. All true. Petra sat down without being invited, her curiosity overcoming her fear. How? He's so small. Brutus looked up at the word small, made an offended sound, and went back to his nuts. Size isn't everything. Brutus is built for fighting. Thick skin, loose connective tissue, powerful jaws, and absolutely no concept of backing down from anything. Danny took a drink. Plus, he's mean when he needs to be. But you keep him as a companion? You trust him with my life. Brutus has saved me more times than I can count. Pirates, wildlife on frontier planets, one time a malfunctioning service bot that went haywire. Danny scratched behind the honey badger's ears. He's family. I don't understand. On my world, we have strict separation between domesticated and wild species. We would never bring a predator into our homes. Earth doesn't really work that way. We've lived alongside predators for our entire history. Eventually, we stopped seeing them as threats and started seeing them as potential partners. Petra pulled up something on her datapad. I've been reading about Earth since the incident. Your planet is classified as a Class 7 death world. The article says that's the highest danger rating. Sounds right. It lists threats including extreme weather, tectonic instability, aggressive flora and fauna, parasitic organisms, and something called Australia. Danny laughed. Yeah, Australia is its own special category. The database says over 70% of Earth species can harm or kill humans. That's probably lowballing it. Petra looked genuinely distressed. How did your species survive? We adapted. We learned. We built tools and communities. And yeah, we made friends with some of the things trying to kill us. Danny gestured at Brutus. My great-grandfather had a dog that saved him from a venomous snake. My grandmother kept cats that protected the grain stores from rats. My dad worked with horses his whole life. But those are domesticated species. Now they are. 10,000 years ago, they were wild. We worked together long enough that we changed each other. Dogs aren't wolves anymore. Cats aren't wildcats. We all became something new together. And honey badgers. Brutus is still wild in a lot of ways. But he chose me as much as I chose him. That's the thing about Earth creatures. They're smart enough to recognize cooperation when it benefits them. Petra was quiet for a moment, processing. I'm trying to understand. Your species looks at a predator and sees a friend. We look at a predator and see potential. Maybe it could be a friend. Maybe it could be a partner. Maybe it could be family. Danny finished his beer. We're all from the same world. We all survive the same challenges. That creates a bond. Other species don't think this way. Other species didn't grow up on Earth. They had easier planets, safer environments. They could afford to keep their distance from dangerous creatures. Danny leaned back. We couldn't. Earth demanded we figure out how to live with everything it threw at us. So we did. Brutus finished his nuts and climbed into Danny's lap, circling twice before settling. He looked about as threatening as a stuffed toy. He looks so peaceful now, Petra observed. He's full and tired. That's when Brutus is happiest. But if someone threatened you, then you'd see why Grell mercenaries are scared of small, furry creatures now. Petra reached out hesitantly. May I? Ask him, not me. She extended her hand slowly. Brutus sniffed it, seemed to decide she was acceptable, and allowed exactly 3 strokes of his head before making a grumbling sound that meant that's enough. Petra pulled back her hand, eyes wide. His fur is so coarse. It's designed to resist bites and claws. Nothing on Earth comes with soft fur unless it's prey. Even the companions, especially the companions. They had to survive, just like we did. Another patron approached the table, then another. Soon Danny was surrounded by curious aliens asking about Earth, about Brutus, about human relationships with animals. A Vorton wanted to know if humans really kept reptiles. A Soltarian asked about birds. A Grell, remarkably brave considering recent events, asked about aquatic creatures. Danny answered them all, pulling up images on his datapad. Dogs of every size and shape. Cats lounging in sunbeams. Horses running across fields. Parrots perched on shoulders. One image showed a human swimming alongside a massive predatory fish. That's a shark, Danny explained. Apex predator in Earth's oceans. This researcher has been studying them for 20 years. They recognize her. Don't attack her. The crowd made sounds of disbelief. I'm telling you, it's about respect and understanding. You approach them right, Show them you're not a threat. Sometimes they'll let you close. Would you swim with sharks? Petra asked. I have. Went diving off the coast of Mexico 5 years ago. Saw 3 different species. Beautiful creatures. You're insane. I'm human. We're all a little insane by galactic standards. The conversation continued for another hour. Danny showed them images of rescue sanctuaries where humans cared for injured wildlife. Videos of service animals helping disabled people. Stories of pets who had saved their owners from fires, floods, and home invasions. Gradually, the fear in the room shifted to something else. Not quite understanding, but fascination. These aliens were beginning to grasp something fundamental about humans. They didn't conquer their world through domination. They survived it through cooperation that a message pinged on Danny's datapad. His cargo ship was cleared for departure. Time ago, he stood, cradling Brutus. The honey badger had fallen asleep during the conversation, snoring softly. Thank you for sharing this, Petra said. I understand humans better now. Just remember, we're not special. We're just from a planet that made us find creative solutions to survival. The creatures we share it with are part of those solutions. He headed for the door. The crowd parted, but this time it was respectful distance rather than fear. Some even nodded as he passed. Danny made it halfway down the corridor before his datapad pinged again. A message from the security chief. Mr. Reed. Safe travels. And please consider filing reports before your next visit. It would save us all significant stress. Also, the medical staff has asked me to convey that the Grells will make full physical recoveries, though the psychological scars may be permanent. They've requested we ban honey badgers from the station. Danny typed back, tell them Brutus says he's sorry. Probably. The response came immediately. I will do no such thing. Danny's ship hummed beneath him as he ran through pre-flight checks. Brutus sat in the co-pilot's seat, which was really just a modified cargo box with padding that Danny had installed 3 years ago. The honey badger watched the station through the viewport, occasionally making interested sounds at passing ships. Ready to go home, buddy. Brutus chittered agreement and settled into his spot. The comm system crackled. Cargo hauler Reed. This is Haven's gate control. You're cleared for departure. Bay doors opening in 30 seconds. Acknowledge control. Thanks for the hospitality. There was a pause. Mr. Reed, this is Chief Security Officer Tallis. Before you depart, I wanted to personally thank you. Danny raised an eyebrow. Thank me? For what? For the lesson. My staff has been analyzing the incident in your subsequent conversations with station patrons. We've learned something valuable about humanity. What's that? That your strength isn't just physical resilience or technological capability. It's your ability to form bonds across species lines, to see potential partnerships where others see only threats. Danny smiled. Appreciate that, Chief. We're updating our first contact protocols. When approaching Deathworld species, we'll be looking for companion relationships as cultural indicators. It may help us understand them better. Smart thinking. One question, if I may. You said Brutus chose you as much as you chose him. What did you mean? Danny looked at the honey badger, who had found a stray bolt on the floor and was investigating it thoroughly. When I found Brutus, I could have taken him to a wildlife center. Let professionals handle him. But he was scared and alone, and he latched onto me. Every day after that, he chose to stay. Could have run off 100 times on 100 different planets. He's not domesticated. Nothing's keeping him with me except his own decision. And you trust that decision completely. Because it's not based on training or conditioning. It's based on mutual respect. I take care of him, he takes care of me. Simple as that. The Grells didn't understand that. The Grells thought disarming me made me helpless. They didn't understand that humans don't measure strength in weapons. We measure it in relationships. The chief was quiet for a moment. Safe travels, Mr. Reed. You and Brutus are welcome back to Haven's Gate anytime. We'll take you up on that. The bay doors finished opening, revealing the starfield beyond. Danny engaged the thrusters and guided the ship out into space. Haven's Gate fell away behind them, a spinning wheel of lights in the darkness. Brutus climbed down from his seat and padded back to the small living quarters. Danny heard him jump onto the bunk and start rearranging the blankets. His datapad showed 3 new job offers, all from stations in the Outer Rim. 2 specifically mentioned that they had heard about the Haven's Gate incident and wanted someone who could handle themselves in rough territory. The third was from a wildlife rescue operation asking if Danny would consider transporting rescued animals. He accepted the wildlife job immediately and flagged the other 2 for later review. The comm system pinged with a personal message. Petra, the young Quillen trader. Mr. Reed, thank you for talking with me today. I've been trading for 6 months, and I've been scared the whole time. Scared of pirates, scared of getting cheated, scared of failing. But watching you and Brutus made me realize something. I don't have to be fearless. I just have to find the right partners. I'm looking into getting a companion animal. There's a species on my homeworld, kind of like your dogs. I always thought they were just for farms, but maybe they could be friends too. Thank you for showing me that. Danny smiled and typed back. Good luck, Petra. Remember, the best companions choose you as much as you choose them. And don't be afraid to look outside the obvious choices. Sometimes the best friends come in unexpected packages. He set the autopilot for their next destination and headed back to the living quarters. Brutus had completely destroyed the careful bed arrangement Danny had made that morning and was now buried under a mountain of blankets with just his nose sticking out. Really? You had to mess up the whole thing. The nose twitched. A muffled grumble emerged from the blanket pile. Danny sat on the edge of the bunk and pulled out his personal datapad, the one with photos from home. Earth hung in the background of most of them. Blue and green and white, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. There were pictures of his family. His grandmother with her 3 cats. His father standing next to a massive horse. His sister holding a parrot almost as big as her arm. His cousin swimming with dolphins. His nephew had recently gotten a puppy, some kind of shepherd mix that would probably grow to weigh more than the kid. Every picture showed humans surrounded by animals. Working together, living together, surviving together. That was Earth's real gift to humanity. Not the harsh environment that made them tough, though that helped. Not the dangerous creatures that taught them to be careful. It was the lesson that survival wasn't a solo mission. The strongest humans were the ones who built teams, formed partnerships, created families that crossed species boundaries. Danny looked at the lump of blankets that contained Brutus. The honey badger who had chosen him, who stayed with him, who fought 6 trained mercenaries to protect him without hesitation. Love you too, buddy. Danny said quietly. A paw emerged from the blankets and batted at Danny's hand. Not aggressive, just acknowledgement. Then it withdrew back into the warmth. Danny pulled up the station security footage one more time, the part where Brutus launched himself at the lead grill. The comments section was full of aliens trying to understand what they'd witnessed. Fear, confusion, scientific curiosity, and grudging respect all mixed together. One comment stood out. Humans didn't conquer their world. They befriended it. That might be the most terrifying thing about them. Danny laughed and closed the datapad. Terrifying wasn't the word he would use. Practical, maybe. Efficient. Smart. Earth had given humanity a choice. Adapt or die. They chose adaptation. And part of that adaptation was recognizing that the creatures sharing their planet weren't obstacles to overcome. They were potential allies in the fight for survival. Some became food. Some became helpers. Some became friends. And some, like the grumpy honey badger currently snoring in a pile of blankets, became family. The ship's computer announced they had cleared Haven's Gate's traffic control zone and were free to jump to hyperspace. Danny engaged the drive and watched the stars stretch into lines. Another station. Another cargo run. Another adventure. And through it all, a small furry terror who would fight anything that threatened his human, sleep 16 hours a day, and demand treats at the most inconvenient times. Danny wouldn't trade it for anything. Back on Haven's Gate, the security chief was filing her final report on the incident. In the recommendations section, she wrote, all stations should update threat assessment protocols to include companion animals when dealing with Deathworlder species. Initial disarmament procedures may be insufficient. Further study needed on human-animal bonding practices and their tactical implications. She paused, then added one more line. Note, honey badgers are not to be classified as pets under any circumstances. Update all databases accordingly. In the medical wing, The Grells were finally being discharged. They walked carefully, watching every shadow, flinching at small sounds. One of them had requested a transfer to a freight route that never went near stations with human traffic. The others had simply quit. In the bar, Petra was showing other traders the images Danny had shared. Conversations about Earth and its creatures continued long into the station's night cycle. Fascination was replacing fear. Curiosity was replacing caution. And somewhere in the black between stars, a cargo hauler flew toward its next destination. Inside, a human and a honey badger slept peacefully, partners in survival, friends by choice, family by bond. Earth's children, carrying their world's greatest lesson with them wherever they went. You don't have to face the universe alone. Sometimes the fiercest protectors come in the smallest packages. And sometimes the strongest weapon is the friend who chose to stand beside you. The Grells had learned that lesson the hard way. The rest of the galaxy was still figuring it out.